Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT10, and BT10 offers us lots of new and powerful cards to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the brand new Bloomlordmon deck. So Bloomlordmon deck kind of plays similarly to what lordknightmon was doing back in BT5, except, well, this is a green deck and it's centered around plants, vegetations, and fairies, more so than just knights and holy knights. So what this deck is doing is something similar, where it is a flood-based deck where you're going to have the ability to play a lot of your mid to low level Digimon for free, and because we're in green, we have easy ways of being able to climb up our stages, on top of the fact that we have an interaction between trying to suspend our Digimon down for extra buffs and bonuses, on top of also doing the classic green thing on being able to suspend the opponent's Digimon down. So with all that said and done, onto the actual deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, I found the Digitama slots to be in this deck kind of flexible. I think the best Digitamas for this deck is going to be Argomon, Gummymon, and Pinamon, so you could use them in any quantity you feel like you want to. But for my iteration of the deck, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Argomon as the main Digitama. So we are a green deck, and green wants to be as memory efficient as we possibly can. So Argomon just really helps with our memory efficiency, especially when our Digimon are able to stick on the field. So it has this nice inheritable ability where during your turn, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended during your unsuspend phase, then we get to gain 1 memory, and we could use that memory to make some even more powerful plays possible, just because of how memory efficient green can be. And then, as far as my 5th Digitama, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Gummymon for some extra card draw. So if you value the card draw more than the memory, then by all means swap the ratios, and you could even, like I stated before, play Pinamon in the deck to help with some extra card draw as well. It kind of is just whatever you feel like you want to be using based on how your deck is going to be played and the types of cards you're going to be incorporating. But Gummymon is a really good draw engine Digitama, just because its inheritable ability states that during your turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon becomes suspended, then we get to draw 1 card, so it's just a nice easy way for us to draw cards. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Palmon. So this is the BT1 version of Palmon, and this is just going to be a digging tool for the deck to use. We're not necessarily trying to use this as the main digging tool, but it definitely helps when it comes up, just because it's already a card that's fitting on theme with how the deck wants to play. So it has an on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 level 4 Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom in any order. So it's not like the digging effect is bad, it's just only specifically targeting level 4s, but it's just that whiff potential compared to some other searchers, why we don't want to run a whole lot of this one. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Mushroomon. So Mushroomon is just a really tempo-efficient rookie for us to be using, even though it doesn't have any inheritable abilities or native abilities. It doesn't need any, just because it's a low-level vegetation with 3000 DP, and that's all we're looking to gain out of the card, on top of the fact that it's actually a pretty good choking tool, having a hard play cost for 2, allowing us to be able to get a body out and then start trying to climb right away with on the field, while we're also trying to hide a Digimon in raising. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Palmon. So this is the brand new BT10 version of Palmon, and this is more of the deck's dedicated digger that we're looking to use, compared to the other Palmon. So its on-play ability states that we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, we get to add 1 card that contains plant or vegetation in its traits, and 1 card that contains fairy in its traits from among them and place it into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So this just is allowing us to fit more on theme with what the deck is trying to do, on top of being just a better search tool for the deck to use, again in comparison to the BT1 version of Palmon. And then to round out our rookies, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Terriermon as one of the 2 anti-meta rookies that I'm going to be running in the deck. So Terriermon is to help shut off the memory manipulating shenanigans that the opponent might have, because he has the nice all turns ability while he's sitting passively on your field, where your opponent can't gain memory except by tamer effects, so they're going to have to deal with Terriermon if they're going to want to be able to gain memory off of their Digimon and options. And then the last anti-meta rookie card I'm going to be playing is going to be 2 copies of Pomumon. So Pomumon, unlike Terriermon, is a vegetation, so it is actually fitting on a theme with the deck, but his Alterns ability that's shutting off the ability to play Digimon by card effects can affect us, but ideally it's going to try to stop the opponent from playing their Digimon by their card effects, and because we're the owner of this card, we have multiple different ways on being able to get rid of it to basically ignore the downside of its effect for us. So we could Digivolve on top of this to be able to get rid of that ability because it's only native to Pomumon, or we could just have Pomumon try to blindly swing into the opponent's security. It doesn't really matter how you get this card off the field, it's just a card that is going to be potentially harming the opponent more than it's going to be harming us. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 4 copies of RedVegiemon. So RedVegiemon is a really cheap and efficient card for us to be using that is also fitting on theme with the deck. So he is a vegetation that hard plays for 3 and evos for 1 with 3000 DP, allowing him to have an easy slot into the deck, even though he doesn't have any native or inheritable abilities, just that tempo play of being able to set up a level 4, so that way we could climb our stages with efficiently is super nice. And for a very similar reasoning, I'm going to be also running 4 copies of Weedmon. So Weedmon has the vegetation typing, has the 3000 DP, and also evos for 1, but he does have a slightly higher play cost of 4, just because he actually does have an inheritable ability. Even though we won't be utilizing this most of the time, it still can come up and still be pretty useful, where during your turn, when this Digimon triggers a Digiburst ability and this card is trashed from its inheritables, then we get to gain 1 memory to be able to enhance and extend some of our plays, which could combo off with some of our supporting megas, depending on how you end up building the deck. But the main level 4 and last level 4 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Sunflowmon. So Sunflowmon is going to be the level 4 we want to see more often than the others, just because, well, it actually has abilities that we're trying to take advantage of. So it being a vegetation with 3000 DP actually matters for comboing with its own ability and some of our other abilities on our higher stages, just because it's when Digivolving ability states that by suspending one of your green Digimon, we get to play 1 Digimon card that contains plant, vegetation, or fairy in its traits and has 3000 DP or less from our hand for free. So this just allows us to use basically all of our level 4s and below to be able to spawn extra bodies, which is just what the deck is trying to do, is get those extra bodies out to be able to suspend them to use for various other abilities. It has a good inheritable ability for us to take advantage of, where during your turn, once per turn, when one of your Digimon becomes suspended by a card effect, then we get to draw 1 card, so it's also acting as some extra good card draw when we're using it in combination with our higher level Digimon. But next, on to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Ajatarmon. So this is going to be one of the main level 5s, if not the main level 5 you want to be going into to try to use for its ability when you're going to be going up into Bloomlordmon more specifically. So it has the main ability where once per turn, by suspending one of our green Digimon, which gives us easy access at being able to suspend our own Digimon, then we get to play 1 Digimon that contains plant, vegetation, or fairy in its traits that has 3000 DP or less from our hand for free. So it's just another way to be able to easily spawn extra bodies to be able to suspend for various benefits. Then on top of that, the benefit that we're trying to gain for his inheritable is during your turn, once per turn, when your Digimon becomes suspended by an effect, then we get to gain 1 memory. So that way, in combination with Sunflowmon, we're going to be able to draw a card and gain a memory when we're suspending our Digimon to our own card effects. And then as far as a good ability on our level 5s to be able to suspend our other Digimon and be able to climb the stages super efficiently with, we're going to be utilizing the Digizorption ability. So the Digizorption ability allows us to suspend one of our Digimon to be able to reduce the Digivolution cost. So Argomon level 5 from BT2 is a really good card at doing that, just because he has the Digisorption 3 ability to be able to make him Evo for 0, which is just super tempo efficient versus a lot of the other level 5s in the game. So this is just a huge tempo play, and he actually has a really good inheritable ability when attacking, not limited to once per turn. You get to play one level 3 green Digimon card from your hand suspended for free, which is pretty good just because we have some pretty decent level 3 Digimon that we want to try to take advantage of, on top of the fact that we do want to try to swarm the field and overwhelm the opponent. And then the last level 5 of the deck that I'm going to be running is going to be 4 copies of Blossomon. So not only does Blossomon share that Digisorption 3 ability to basically make it Evo for 0, but it's also a vegetation compared to Argomon, so it's fitting a little bit more on theme with how the deck wants to be played with our plants, vegetations, and fairies. And then as far as our level 6s go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Bloomlordmon. So Bloomlordmon is going to be the main level 6 of the deck because, well, the deck is centered around him. He does have the fairy type, and stat-wise, he's not too bad, being a level 6 that digivolves for 4 and has 12,000 DP. But we have ways to make him even more efficient to use, just because his when digivolving ability states that we get to suspend one of our Digimon down. Then for each of our Digimon that's suspended that contains plant, vegetation, or fairy in its traits, then we get to gain 1 memory, and when we gain 2 or more memory off of this ability, then we get to unsuspend this Digimon, and it gains the piercing ability. So it wants to be used in combination with our Digisorptions, so that way we have an easy way to Digizorb for 0, have our Digimon be suspended, so that way we could use Bloomlordmon's when Digivolving ability to be able to gain some extra memory and unsuspend himself. Then on top of that, we could use him in combination with Ajatarmon, so that way we could suspend Ajatarmon using his ability, play a Digimon for free, and then have 2 Digimon suspended onto the field already, and then when we go up into Bloomlordmon, we're going to be gaining 3 memory, just because Ajatarmon's inheritable ability also will help us gain some memory when we suspend our other Digimon, which we just played thanks to his ability, onto the field for free. So that way we could have lots of tempo-efficient power plays. And the more Digimon that we have, the more memory we're going to be gaining off of Bloomlordmon's ability to actually be able to make him potentially free to Digivolve into, which is just super crazy considering he'll also have the piercing ability that pairs nicely with our secondary ability, where during your turn, for each of your suspended Digimon, then this Digimon gains plus 2,000 DP and security attack plus 1. So the more Digimon that we have in play that's suspended, the stronger Bloomlordmon is going to be, so that way we could try to make as powerful of a swing and push as we possibly can, just because him unsuspending himself allows us to actually be able to attack the turn we Digivolve up into him. And then as far as the supporting Mega goes, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Rafflesimon, but if you really wanted to, you could run any other level 6 that you feel like would best pair up with Bloomlordmon based on how you want to play the deck and the type of build that you're going for. So Rafflesimon is still a fairy type for us to use with our synergy, on top of the fact that we are playing a tiny bit into Digiburst, so we actually could take advantage of her main Digiburst 2 ability, where all of your Digimon gain plus 2,000 DP for the turn, so it's just even more DP boosting to ensure that our Digimon are going to have a higher survival rate when attacking into the opponent's security or their Digimon. Then on top of that, during your turn, once per turn, when you use the Digiburst ability, then one of the opponent's Digimon can't attack or block for the turn, so it's acting as a good stun lock tool also to try to ensure that the opponent's Digimon won't be able to do anything. Next, onto the options, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Hidden Potential Discovered. So we can only run 1 copy of Hidden Potential Discovered, like we can only run 1 copy of the BT2 Argomon, just because they are both limited to 1 because of how powerful they are. So what Hidden Potential Discovered is doing is, for the low cost of 0, we get the nice main ability where the next time one of our green Digimon Digivolves this turn, we get to suspend one of our Digimon to reduce the memory cost of the Digivolution by BT10-055. So this is super important to make a lot of powerful tempo plays to basically get into our level 6s or potentially level 7s if we're running any for basically free, which is very, very powerful and tempo efficient, especially since we already want to be playing around with the fact that we want to suspend our own Digimon and have our own Digimon be suspended. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Śānti. So Samādhi is a very cheap and efficient option to try to help suspend the opponent's Digimon down, so we could do the classic green thing of, well, utilizing piercing off of Bloomlordmon to be able to beat up that Digimon. So it has the nice main ability where we get to suspend one of our Digimon to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers down. So if we need to, we could try to suspend the Tamers to try to make some of their abilities less efficient to be using as well. Then your opponent's cards that are suspended by this card can't unsuspend until the end of their next turn. So that way we have extra time to attack something else, and then while that Digimon is still stun locked thanks to Śānti, we could beat it up at a later turn. Then it has the security ability where we get to suspend one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers, acting as a pretty decent security threat to potentially take away some of their extra aggro. And then the last option card of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Green Memory Boost. So Green Memory Boost is one of the best setup cards for this style of deck, just because its main ability states that we get to reveal the top 4 cards of our deck, add a green Digimon from among them into our hand, and then the rest go to the bottom. So it's just a really powerful generic digging tool, and this card will go into the battle area instead of the trash when we use it up, so that way we could use the secondary main ability of Delay to be able to gain 2 memory at a later turn to make even more powerful plays possible while we're trying to dig for our parts and pieces. And then the last card and only tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Mimi. So this is the BT1 version of Mimi, and this is going to be the memory setting tamer of the deck, so that way our memory is always going to be at least set to 3, which is pretty good, allowing us to try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can. And then on top of that, she has a nice secondary ability, which is what we're actually trying to gain out of the card, to be able to turbo out our raising, to be able to use that in various different ways depending on what we need at any given moment. So her secondary main ability states that if we have a level 5 or higher green Digimon in play, we get to suspend this tamer to basically get a secondary raising phase. So the more Mimis that we have on the field, it means that we could immediately hatch an egg with one Mimi and then use a secondary Mimi to move it out into the battle area. So that way we could use that Digimon right away with, making her super powerful just because of all of that flexibility that extra Digimon comes with. And then there's still just a whole bunch of different Tekken tools to really customize the deck to not only fit your playstyle, but to be able to customize it to be able to answer the meta as well. So if you find yourself attacking into the opponent's Digimon a lot, then you might want to swap Digitamas to think about incorporating Pinamon for some extra card draw. Or if you're leaning more into the support of Digiburst, then you might want to swap it into the promo Palmon, so that way you could use it as Digiburst fodder to be able to gain the jamming ability. And then there's still just a whole bunch of other different Palmons that you could think about incorporating, all depending on, again, what you're actually trying to gain out of your level 3s. Then, as far as some alternative level 4s go, you could think about running Togemon as a really good level 4, just because, well, it's a vegetation, so it's fitting on typing with the different types that it's trying to play with in the deck, on top of the fact that it's a pretty decent and underrated searching tool, so that way we could use it to try to dig out our higher level Digimon. It's not the best digging tool, but it's still one that fits on theme with the deck. And then on top of that, we could just run a hybrid, just because hybrid alternative win conditions are just really good at making it so that way when we break all of the opponent's security, we could just Digivolve our Tamer into an Argomon and be able to swing for the game that way, surprising the opponent and being able to steal games that way. Then, as far as some other alternative level 5s in the deck, you could use both the new and the old Cherrymon just because, well, they're both vegetations, and they're both relatively efficient to Digivolve into. The old Cherrymon Digivolves for 2 and just natively has the blocker ability, and this new Cherrymon has the Digizorption 2, so he's actually going to be costing 1 to Digivolve into, and basically has a redirect ability, so he has an alternative form of blocking, making it so that both of the Cherrymons are good defensive tools for the deck. And then you could also run something like Pistamon, just because Pistamon, again, is another Digisorption with Vegetation, so it's an easy level 5 for us to use in the deck, and it supports the deck because it's already interacting with wanting Digimon to be suspended, so that way it gains some extra DP, not only during our turn, but the opponent's turn as well, which is super important, so that way it makes our Digimon harder for them to be interacting with. Or we could think about utilizing Chimeramon to try to reuse some of our inheritable abilities a little bit more effectively, and we could line up the DNA Digivolution ability quite easily, just because we have multiple Digimon that want to play, ideally, our level 4s for free, so that just easily lines up Chimeramon to be a very powerful card to take advantage of. And then we do have a whole bunch of supporting level 6s that you could run, all depending on what you're trying to tech against. So if you wanted to, you could incorporate Nidhoggmon, just because Nidhoggmon is already playing with the Digiburst ability, and we could build our stacks very quickly and very easily because we're already in green, and just the board wipe potential off of Nidhoggmon sometimes is just good enough to win you games. On top of the fact that we do have the Argomon level 6 from BT5 to try to interact with the opponent's tamers and suspend and keep suspended the opponent's tamers down to try to hose on tamer-based decks. And then if you wanted to, you could also play Shivamon, just because Shivamon already wants us to be suspending our own Digimon down, which is something the deck already is trying to do. So having the ability to passively burn the opponent's security and on top of that lock them out of their options could be super powerful. On top of the fact that we have various other level 6s that we could be playing that are also plant, vegetation, or fairy typed Digimon. Then we do have a couple of level 7s that we could think about utilizing. So Chaosmon from BT4 is a pretty good one just because he natively has piercing. When we Digivolve up into him, we get to unsuspend him and attack into an opponent's unsuspended Digimon. So it's just some extra damage and control. Or if you really wanted to, you could even think about utilizing Omnimon Merciful Mode, just because Omnimon Merciful Mode will end up trying to burn the opponent's security and act as some good grave hate. And then we have some pretty decent removal or suspend options for us to think about utilizing. Then we do have some other monocolored tamers that we could use to try to help the deck's overall flow and functionality. So we do have Davis and we do have Ken as two really good substitutes for Mimi. So Davis just helps us dig out our other cards, and Ken is just a good solid green memory fixer that allows us to gain memory when we beat up into the opponent's Digimon. And then we do have duo tamers to think about incorporating into the deck as well. So we do have something like TK and Izzy to try to help us gain some memory and control the opponent's field. On top of the fact that we do have Joe and Mimi, that is going to be acting as a green and a blue tamer to, again, help us gain some extra memory and add some extra control into the deck. On top of the fact that if we're utilizing Davis and or Joe and Mimi, then we could utilize them as blue sources to be able to run blue options as well, or blue-green options to be able to add some extra control that might take the opponent by surprise. But for the most part, this is just my interpretation of a Bloomlord deck and BT10, and Bloomlordmon is looking to be one of the more powerful decks on top of one of the more powerful green decks to play, with having some really good customization and various different Tekken tools to handle various different matchups and metas, all depending on the type of play environment you're expected to be playing in. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.